It's now the 10. So we're gonna begin for the conference of the second of the conference 2023 Global Disability Conference. I'd like to welcome all participants to today's. I'm the Jong-hae, working at the KDF. Good to see you all. Thank you for coming to this conference in spite of the early in the morning. So today's conference will talk about the result of our workshops that we have done from the last month with several Asian Pacific countries. So we have 2 times of the online workshop and also 1 offline workshops with our friends Asia Pacific countries to develop the draft of the indicator. So to check for this indicator, to check for the concluding observations have been done for the some Asia Pacific countries and Laos, Indonesia, Thailand, and also Japan and Malaysia. So those countries want to monitor the implementing status of the concluding observations. So they agree that the importance. So with great interest, we are working together to develop this indicator. So before giving the microphone to moderator, I just give some announcement. So this conference would be done for the simultaneous provide simultaneous interpretations and also caption service and also sign language interpretation. So we have the 2 simultaneous interpreters, and also we have 4 sign language interpreters for the Korean and then for the international sign language. And also we have 2 caption typist, 1 for Korean and 1 for English. Thank you for your service. So in your conference, the booklet. So just to inside the booklet, you will see the QR code. The QR code is to see the documentations in online. So using this QR code, you can download some of the conference documentations from our website. Or if you search the KDF at the Korean neighbor website, and also you can download all the documentation about this conference. And this conference is airing through the YouTube system or the Zoom systems. So all the video clip about this conference also will be shared later. Okay, now I'd like to give my microphone to Chair Park Kim-yong of the KDF, please. Good morning to all. So I'm Chair Park Kim-yong of KDF and also working at the Anti-Discrimination Alliance in Korea. So today we don't have the many participants because now it's too early. But I know that you have interest in the concluding observations from the UNCRPD committee, but now it's too much early, so that's why people couldn't come to this conference. So from yesterday, this conference started from the yesterday, and I wanted to join in this conference from yesterday, but now Korea is very busy to tackle the disability issues. So anyhow, so there are so many issues regarding disability. So that's why I couldn't come yesterday. And also some of the activists the same. They really wanted to join in here, but they can't do that to handle their own work regarding the disability issues in their organizations. But our sharings also will be delivered to later to our activists working in Korea and also working in other countries in Asia Pacific region. So our discussions will give a great positive impact on all our friends in Korea, in also Asia Pacific countries. So this is very valuable place in the sense. So we need to discuss more and we need to share more. So the UN CRPD's concluding observations is very important. So now we are trying to develop indicator regarding for this concluding observations. So when we started the process at first time, so we don't know how much this indicator is effective, developed only by our side. But when we are working for developing these indicators, so we can know more about the situation of disabled people, and also we can check more the experience of the person with disabilities. And also we thought that this experience should be shared with other friends in other countries to make the more fruitful indicator to apply for all those countries in Asia Pacific region. So today is the place to present the draft indicators that developed by in each country, and also we can check what is the future direction to go forward. So I know that you have a lot of things to share and say, but I just to say one thing that today's discussion is very important to give some good impact on the activists and friends working in those sectors in Asia Pacific, the countries. Firstly, today's Professor Kim Ki-ryong will speak about all this process, and also he talked about the indicator that developed in Korea. And then also I'd like to invite the Choi Seung-chul, who is the former the director of the CODI, and then also other speakers from Korea, Indonesia, Thailand, Laos also will speak later. Yeah, after Director Choi Seung-chul, the lawyer Cho Mi-yeon from Korea, they will speak. So first I'd like to invite Professor Kim Ki-ryong from Joongbu University, who is the chair of the Indicators Development Associated in Korea. So he's gonna talk about the process to develop the indicator and also result of the indicators developed in Korea. I will give 20 minutes. Yeah, 20 minutes. Please, Professor.
Good morning. I am Kim Ki-ryong from Joongbu University. It's very early morning. But I'm sure many of you are very interested in this issue. So today, we actually had the workshop. Well, in the past, actually, for several months, we had some workshop to develop indicators to implement concluding observations of CRPD. And so that we can make sure the state party can implement effectively the concluding observations of CRPD. So we have had some workshops, and we've gathered together with the representatives of other countries in Asia. So from early this year, we've been working on this issue to develop indicators to implement concluding observations. And for 2 months ago, we started in earnest our workshop and we shared how do you develop indicators and what we have to take into account when we develop the indicators to implement concluding observations. And we had a lot of discussions together. So actually, we made the draft version of the indicators together, and I would like to share the result of each country's indicator development status today. I would like to show this screen to you. Yes, I actually had to share this one in advance. But 2 days ago, we had workshop, and I was able to actually summarize the issues we shared together in the workshop, and I made this screen yesterday. So apology for not distributing this material in advance. I will upload this one right now. And this one includes actually Korean and English together. So today I would like to talk about implication and principles of concluding observations indicator development. And I would like to share our workshop activity process and outcomes. First of all, I'd like to talk about the implication and principles of concluding observations indicator development, the meaning of developing indicators. So how we can utilize these indicators. I thought about this and look at this one. So one of the activities, activists actually are asked by asking the government officials why the government is not implementing this issue, which is recommended by UN committee, CRPD committee. Then the government official is saying that actually this is being implemented well. What's wrong? What's the problem? And the DPO can say, look at this. Are you implementing this? No, because we have this evidence. I have some technical issue here. So the government official will say that, no problem, we are doing very well. But the DPO can say, the numbers are dropping like this, which is indicating that you are not implementing this one. So these indicators can be utilized as the basis for claims and suggestions. So when we provide some suggestions and when we provide some claims, it will be utilized as the basis for the claims and suggestions. And DPOs and civil societies, they can make suggestions and recommendations toward the government officials utilizing these indicators. So actually, we can check whether the concluding observations are well implemented in the society. There are many human rights indicators based on UNCRPD and also in relation to SDGs. And these indicators shows the levels of the society, how well it is effectively implementing the recommendations from the committee and also from agencies in relation to human rights. So indicators can be used in state party reports to the international human rights monitoring mechanisms. And we can monitor the promotion and implementation of human rights based on these indicators. This is quite effective tool. That's why we would like to develop these indicators. So we actually developed indicators together with stakeholders. It is actually providing information for effective implementation of concluding observations, and it assesses the current level of protection of the rights of persons with disabilities, and it identifies the target level of at which the implementation can be confirmed, and also it can promote understanding among responsible public officials and among persons with disabilities and their families. Based on these purposes, we actually have some principles in developing indicators. There are some frameworks that is being utilized to develop indicators. Actually, the indicators should be validated. It actually has to follow the principle of validation and measurability and effectiveness based on the concluding observations of CRPD. Is this indicator aligned with the concluding observations content? So this kind of validation principles should be observed. And to monitor the concluding observation, it should measure the outcomes and process of the concluding observation implementation. As you can see from the diagram, we have some process to develop indicators. In Korea, we've done this indicator development process, and each country, we proposed this process to each country. We have to analyze the content of concluding observations, and we need to develop key findings from concluding observations, and we need to develop effective indicators. By doing so, we can make a fact sheet, and based on the fact sheet and also indicators, we have to review the indicators in the end. That's the process of developing indicators. In detail, for the details, it will be discussed later. So I will briefly talk about the process. So out of the content of concluding observations, we have to derive the key findings. By reading the concluding observations, we find important message and the meaning of the concluding observations. By doing so, we were able to find key findings from the concluding observations based on the analysis of the concluding observations. And based on that, we made the draft version of the indicators. And also we created fact sheets and also related indicators and measurable methods and some reference were prepared, and it was included in fact sheet. By doing so, we made proposal lists of indicators, and you can see the full text of concluding observations. And based on that, we included key findings, indicators, and definition of indicators, and measurement method, and the types of categories of indicators, and configuration of the indicators, whether it is qualitative and quantitative, fact-based, whether it's structure or process indicators, and what is the ministry which is responsible for providing the basis for this indicator. So by doing so, we made up some lists. In Korea, we created 111 indicators, although it's not final version, but considering the characteristics of Korean society, we derived 111 indicators. So each country, you can refer to the indicators developed in Korea. And there are a lot of ways that we can utilize these implementation indicators. And based on the indicators, we need to check the government's compliance with the concluding observations. And each year, we have to confirm the level of implementation in state party. That's what we have to do in the next steps. By utilizing these indicators, we will make sure the state party will effectively implement concluding observations of CRPD. From Thailand, Mongolia, Japan, Laos, we've gathered together in September, and we shared principles and directions for developing implementation indicators. And I provided some ideas on the indicators, and we shared the development schedule of implementation indicators by country. And the country-specific issues were also discussed in September. And also 9th of October, 2 days ago, Laos was also participating in this workshop. Thailand, Indonesia, Mongolia, Laos. So we discussed the matters to be considered in the process of developing implementation indicators, and we made some organizations or responsible council to develop the indicators together. So we had some different nature of different countries in developing indicators. And we shared our future schedule, and we provided some feedback and comments and how to make the indicator more validated and effective. These kinds of ideas were discussed together. As I mentioned already, Korea made 111 indicators, and based on that, we will develop a plan for initial baseline survey and will conduct the baseline survey. And in terms of Japan, especially focusing on the Article 19 of CRPD, they made indicators, especially focusing on Article 19 and Article 24. and 13 indicators were developed for Article 19 and 2 indicators for Article 24. And they provided the examples of indicators to us. So JDF is taking the initiative in developing the indicators in Japan, and they will work together in Japan and Laos. It provided draft version of indicators, especially focusing on the Article 6 of CRPD. And they provided draft of the indicators, focusing on Article 6, 9, 26 of CRPD and concluding observations. And that is what the representative of Laos did. The representative will continue working on improving these indicators. And we provided samples, and based on our sample, they developed their own indicators. And this is the draft version of their indicator. For Thailand, through the workshop, the Thailand representative provided some ideas, and there are SDG-related indicators. Based on that, they will develop indicators. And utilizing indicators by OHCHR, they will develop the indicators in Thailand. It's quite meaningful. We learned something from the Thailand examples so that we can harmonize the other indicators, international indicators, with indicators in relation to CRPD. And Indonesia also provided very specific indicators. The concluding observations given to Indonesia were quite country specific, and based on the characteristics of Indonesia's own situation, they developed indicators. And this is the proposed indicators by the Indonesia, and they will revise the indicators in the future. And based on that, they will monitor the implementation of concluding observations. So in conclusion, while developing indicators, we analyzed concluding observations and developed indicators. And based on that, we will monitor the implementation of CRPD, not only in Korea, but also in other countries, including Japan, Indonesia, Thailand, Mongolia, and Laos, in collaboration. By doing so, we can urge the state party to implement the concluding observations of CRPD. Based on that, we would like to utilize the indicators together so that we can make sure each country can effectively implement the concluding observations. I hope that we can gather together in the future frequently so that we can monitor each country's implementation, and we can check the changes in each country. So not only in countries in Asia, but also countries around the world. In these countries, we would like to see the enhancement of human rights in each countries. I hope that every year we can share the indicators together And we would like to monitor how effectively each country is implementing the concluding observations of CRPD. We would like to share our experience together in the future. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
So thank you, Professor Kim. So you made a good presentation. Thank you. So you mentioned about the meaning of the indicator and also indicators based on the human rights, and also talk about the process of the developing indicator through a data process. Also, you want to share that process to other countries, or to propose to other country. And it's based on the concluding observations. You mentioned that you pick out the key findings, and also you mentioned about the each country also must develop their own indicator, and then every years work together to check the implementation status of the concluding observation. So point is that the how to check from the NGO side about implementation status of each government concluding observations. So you mentioned about those points. But this indicator could be also different based on the different context in each country. So each country should develop their own indicator. And maybe also in the future, so NGOs in each country can monitor the implementation of concluding observation by their own government. So maybe we can collect these data to improve the life of the persons with disabilities in each country. And also this is anyhow that this could be one of the tool to show our commitment to protect, promote the lives of the persons with disabilities. Thank you very much. Your good presentation, Professor Kim. And next, I'd like to invite the former research director, Choi Seung-chul of Korea Disabled People's Development Institute, KODI. So he's gonna talk about indicators and their data for monitoring Asian countries' compliance with CRPD. Please. Good morning to all. I'm Choi Seung-chul. I was asked by the organizer of this conference to give presentations on what should be kept in mind when establishing indicators to monitor this process in state parties' implementation of the recommendations in the concluding observations. So my presentation is about to be somewhat general, but I'd like to focus on specific issues regarding data for human rights indicators that I encountered in drafting CRPD initial state report and the ancient strategy indicators and the government's report to the UN SCAP survey on the midpoint review of the Asian Pacific Decade of Persons with Disabilities. So through these experiences, I would like to develop the speech contest, speech text. Obviously, one of the most important thing is creating an indicator is to obtain data to be applied to it. Although there are some differences, countries in the Asia-Pacific region, on average, do not seem to have adequate quantitative and qualitative data for human rights indicators for disabled persons. This can be inferred by assessing the quantity and the quality of disability data in the CRP initial report. I counted the number of the statistics in the initial reports of 6 countries whose human rights organizations for persons with disabilities are participating in this conference. It was found that in some of the countries, that number was quite small. It is concerned that those countries would have a significant lack of data to apply to indicators for monitoring implementation of the recommendations in the concluding observations. Also, I looked specifically at the data in the 6 countries first report by key human rights areas, such as education, work, and adequate standard of living, income. So core statistics in these areas, for example, the school enrollment rate of the children with disabilities are very important since they are indicators in themselves. The first, looking at the key statistics in the field of the educations, only one country presented school enrollment or completion rates of children with disabilities at any levels of education. 2 countries only presented the number of children with disabilities attending schools, and 1 country only presented the numbers of children attending special schools. The remaining 2 countries did not provide any statistics on school enrollment or completion of children with disabilities. There were 2 countries that presented employment rate of the persons with disabilities, the most important statistics in the area of work. And 1 country only presented the number of the disabled people employed on the basis of the quota system, including Korea. And the remaining 3 countries did not present any employment statistics. For reference, the formula for the employment rate of the disabled people is the total number of the employed persons with disabilities divided by the total number of the persons with disabilities in the economically active age groups and multiplied by 100. In the area of the adequate standard of the living, the average monthly income of disabled people over their household is both a key statistic and indicator. Only 1 country presented the statistics in its initial report. However, given the several countries reported in their initial reports that they used the income level as one of the criteria for selecting beneficiaries of the social protection program for disabled people, it is assumed that they have the data regarding the income of persons with disabilities. The Korean government included employment rate and average monthly income of household persons with disabilities, but failed to include the school enrollment rates of children with disabilities in its initial report. Instead, it included only 1 numbers of children with disabilities attending schools. Nonetheless, the government has seemed to assume that the school enrollment rate for children with disabilities is in fact 100% in the primary level of education. The reason why the school enrollment rate of the disabled children is considered 100% is the procedure of diagnosing the disabilities of children and enrolling them in school as you see below. If a child is thought to have a disability, the child is parent or the head of the school where the child is placed can contact the superintendent of education, the special education support center, to diagnose whether the child have a disability for the purpose of special education. And the child enrolled in the school in which he or she is placed, whether or not he or she is diagnosed to be eligible for special education. This means that the all special education recipient children with disabilities for the purpose of special education enrolled in schools so that the school enrollment rate of the children with disabilities is 100%. However, in some cases, the parents try to hide them, so education authorities cannot determine their whereabouts, although the number of the school constituted children with disabilities are quite small. It means that school enrollment, the rate for children with disabilities cannot be exactly 100%. So the Korean government and also other Asia countries try to check more exact number of the children with disabilities. But I know that, but this is a very difficult task. And also the source of the employment rate of the persons with disabilities in Korea, the government's initial report, is the survey on economic activities of disabled persons, a specific disability-specific survey. If we obtain only the employment rate of disabled people, there is no particular problem in using data from a survey targeting only disabled people. But it could be problematic when you want to determine the gap between persons with and without disabilities in employment rate, as you see below. When the Korean government determined the gap between the persons with disabilities in enrollment rate, it compares the statistics from the above-mentioned disability-specific data and the one from the economically active population survey, a survey targeting the entire population without distinction between disabled people and the persons without disabilities. So in a strict sense, such a comparison does not only fail to show the gap between the those groups in employment, the rate, but also has the problem of comparing data of the from the two survey different from each other in terms of the survey method, including sampling. To solve those problems, the measures are needed to enable data to be disaggregated by disability, by including disability as a respondent's personal variable in the economically active population, the survey. But the statistic agency in Korea said that including the disability, the variable is very difficult, the task. Also to spend too much money to get the data. But anyhow, so in the mainstream the data, we need to put the disability, the variable to get this segregated data only for the disability. Like the employment rate of the person with disabilities, the average monthly income of the household of the disabled in the Korean government initial report was also statistics from the National Survey on Persons with Disabilities. When the Korean government figures out the gap between the household of the persons with and without disabilities in average monthly income, it compares the statistics from the disability-specific survey and the one from the survey targeting households without distinction between the two groups. It alleges the same above-mentioned problems that occurs when comparing those groups in employment rate. Therefore, the same measures is needed to solve this problem, which means the segregations of the mainstream income data by disability. And as you know, it is an obligation for state parties under Article 31 of the CRPD to desegregate data by various variables, including disability, such as gender, age, race, and level of education. This segregation is essential for establishing and implementing objective and effective human rights policy for persons with disabilities on the equal basis with others. So, as the CRPD committee recognizes the importance of the desegregation of the data by disability, and see that the majority of the state parties in the Asia-Pacific region have not yet had sufficient data desegregated by disability and other variables, the committee has recommended to address this problem in their concluding observations to each country. But there are some subtle differences between those concluding observations and also the Korea. The difference exists between the initial report and the combined second and third, the national report. The recommendation 64.8 of the concrete observation on the combined second and third national report of the Korea that requires to quickly develop systems and procedures for collecting data on persons with disabilities desegregated by age, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, race, ethnicity, income, migration status, education level. So this recommendation is somewhat different from the corresponding recommendations in the concluding observations on the first report. In the recommendation on the initial report, the data was not limited to data on persons with disabilities, as can be seen in the sentence in the following parenthesis, and disability was included in the list of the variables by which data is desegregated. The reason I pointed out this difference is the segregation of survey data covering the both persons with without disabilities are very important. I think that even if some other countries are same, they got this almost similar recommendations to what a Korean government has received from the UNCRPD committee. But anyhow, each country made efforts to develop the segregated data for the disabled people. And also this data must include the gender, age, sexual level, education level, and place of the residence. So desegregating data by disability is needed not only for survey data, but also for administrative data. For example, in relation to Article 11 of the CRPD, which deals with situations of risk and the humanitarian emergency, all 6 countries, including Korea, have had recommendations in the concluding observation that disability should be considered in formulating and implementing just the risk reduction plans, strategies, and policies. And countries which recently have had the concluding observations were recommended to formulate disability mainstreaming plans for responding to and recovering from COVID-19. Indicators for monitoring and implementation of these recommendations are structural indicators that assess whether disability has been considered in formulating the relevant plans or policies, or process indicators that assess whether such disability mainstreamed plans or policies are actually implemented. In addition, the result indicators are also needed to monitor the result or effects of implemented plans or policies. If the goal of CRPD is to protect, guarantee, the fulfill the rights of the disabled peoples, the result indicators are the most significant ones. So I strongly recommend establishing the result indicators with regard to the recommendations in the concluding observations, if possible. One of the result indicators to assess the implementations of the recommendations related to Article 11 above can be the gap between persons with and without disabilities in the rate of the victims of the dangerous situation and humanitarian emergencies or COVID-19. The data to be applied to this indicator is mainly administrative data. So this administrative data should be desegregated by disability, and if possible, by type of disability. Such disability desegregations would be almost impossible if the presence or the absence of disability and type of disability were not included in the items of the data in the first place, for which administrative data would be collected. So when you develop, as I mentioned, when you develop administrative data, the disability item must be included, as I would like to highlight. So far, I have talked about disability data and indicators needed to monitor progress in the implementation of the recommendations in the concluding observations on the CRPD initial report. Most countries in the Asia-Pacific region, including Korea, have yet to appropriately collect and maintain data to be applied to indicators for assessing progress in human rights for persons with disabilities. So disability rights organization in the Asia-Pacific region should formulate human rights indicators and at the same time find the data for them. When it is found that appropriate data is not available, the organization should make it priority to urge their government to collect the data and thereby to implement the implementations in the concrete observations under the Article 31 of the CRPD. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Choi. Data is important in developing indicators. And also in the data should be disaggregated by disability. By doing so, we can have a concrete measurement. And also by the type of disability, the data should be disaggregated. In Asia, we don't have any specific data. And so to develop indicators, we need some sufficient data for the measurement. So in CRPD, we have some recommendations from the CRPD to have sufficient data. by utilizing the recommendation of CRPD, we have to make sure each state party have sufficient data. So we've heard two presentations from Korea, and now we would like to invite Sawalak Tongkai from Thailand, and she would like to share how to utilize the indicators in Thailand and how they developed the indicators.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderators, and I also appreciate Professor Kim and two professors and experts of indicators. I learned a lot through the process of process of making the indicator. However, in Thailand, there is no plan. I haven't heard from the government yet that they have a plan to establish or to build the indicators to indicate their implementations. And there is no any monitoring. I mean, the quality monitoring mechanisms, except the National Human Rights Commission is appointed to be the national monitoring to the implementations of the convention. However, the National Human Rights Commission of Thailand doesn't have only priorities to monitor and evaluate the implementations of CRPD, because they have to take care of the other human rights treaty. So therefore, it is important for Thailand, for organizations of persons with disability, get together and establish the indicators systems, because OPD has a responsibility to evaluate the implementations as they are rights holder. So however, due to a period of, this time, the government of Thailand just appointed, and the OPD of in Thailand are still working on the other issue to consult many issues to the new governments. However, there is an opportunity, because in Thailand, the government of Thailand is under the evaluate the implementations of all national law, include the law on disability empowerment. So the OPD, particular Women with Disability Coalition of Thailand, proposed the department focal point on disability to include women and gender, women and girl genders, and also the perspective of intersectionality into the new, the first draft of the revisions of the law on empowerment, Disability Empowerment Act. And also I and my colleague from the coalitions of women with disability has met the new ministers of the Ministry of Social Development and Human Security, where the Department for the Empowerment of Persons with Disability is under this minister and ministry. And we proposed the ministers that it is necessary that we need to have at least one indicator under the Article 6, Women with Disabilities, because we are promoting to the parliament to include gender and to include disability perspectives within Gender Equality Act, and also include gender perspective into Disabilities Empowerment Act. So we consider to apply the CRP to OSSR CRPD indicator supported, funded by European Union, because the OSSR CRPD indicator is really close to the recommendations of the committee. When the committee generate the concluding of the observation, the committee also utilize these indicators and convert the indicator into the recommendations. So I have found that they are very useful because the indicator produced by OSSR and CRPD supported by European Unions pay attention to three level of indicator, which are structure, process, and outcome indicator. Because the structural indicator measure the acceptance, the intention, and commitment to the human rights of the state party, and they reflect enactments of legal instruments and the adoptions of the policies for the implementations of human rights. For example, the legislation enacted that ensure the inclusive education for all students, including students with disability in public and private settings across all levels of education. The process indicators measure efforts to transform commitments into design results. These indicators assess policies and measures taken to implement commitment on the ground. I think it is necessary because we have seen a lot of, quantitative indicator. We don't know if the process of implementations of the policy is rights-based or it's inclusive of persons with disability and their organization. For instance, in Article 24, education, the process indicator talking about the proportions of school with access to the schooling building or access to other academics or curriculum, or even the teaching methods and adapted infrastructure and material for students with disability, for instance, or budget allocation to ensure the rights of persons with disability to inclusive education in mainstream settings. We don't talk about limit or limitations to only school, but we enlarge the meaning of inclusive school to schooling setting as compare to budget allocated to segregated or separated education setting, whether in mainstream or in special school. You can see that yesterday we are talking about the government, some state parties set up the special class in the regular school or in the inside the regular classroom. That if we have the process indicator, we would see how or exactly the results of the structure. The outcome indicator, the major results of efforts to the further human rights. The outcome indicator capture results that reflect the levels of enjoyment of all human rights in a given context. So therefore, I would like, to propose the indicator specifically on Article 6, women with disability. The goal of Article 6 is full and equal exercise and enjoyment by women with disability of all human rights and fundamental freedoms. The goal is in line with Article number 1 of CRPD. An indicator, I'm going to indicator. The concluding of the observations made by the committee in 2016 are adopt a strategy for guaranteeing full protection against discriminations and enjoyment of the rights of women and girls with disability, particularly those living in rural areas and belonging to ethnic minorities. B, ensure that women and girls with disability can participate effectively in decision-making processes at all levels on matters that concern them directly, including in the Thai Women's Assembly. And then D, I skip C. C will be in the other category. D, in consultation with representative organizations of women with disability, implementation a strategy to promote the full development, advancement, and empowerment of women and girls with disability. For these three, the recommendation from the committee, we propose the structural indicators that are: one, legal frameworks are in place to promote, enforce, and monitor equality. This indicator is in line with SDG number 5.1.1. Number two, comprehensive legal frameworks to prohibit all forms of intersectional discrimination, included direct and indirect discrimination on the basis of gender and disabilities. Number three, systematics adopted to track and make public allocations for gender equality and women's empowerment, with allocations disaggregated by target. Fourth, specific measures in place to guarantee close consultations and active involvement of women and girls with disability and their representative organization on matters concerning them. This is for structural indicator to recommendation number A, B, and D. And then recommendation C, mainstream a perspective on women and girls with disability in its gender equality law, strategy, policy, and programs. The structural indicators are national gender equality plans, policy, and laws are fully inclusive of women and girls with disability. Number two, specific measures in place for the advancement and empowerment of women and girls with disability through supporting the developments of their representative organization and through the adoptions of twin track approach. So, and then we generate the process indicators. The process indicator cover those structural indicators. It is the results of to show the commitment of the state party, to implement the structural indicators. First, proportions of legislation and national action plans and strategy, targeting women and girls with disability. These are in line with SDG 5.1.1. And proportions of women and girls with disability participating in leadership and human rights training among all women and among all persons with disabilities. It is, we like to compare the proportion, the percentage of, a participation, a meaningful participation of women with and girls with disability. Three, trainings and awareness raising activity funded by the government directed at women and girls with disability on their human rights, and numbers of participants disaggregated by age, disabilities, and geographic locations, because we want to know if indigenous person who belong to underrepresented groups would is involved or included in this process and program and its activity. including those who are living in rural and remote area. 5. Number of representative organizations of women with disability segregated by geographic location. An awareness raising campaign and activity concerning gender equality are inclusive of women and girls with disability and combat multiple and intersecting form of discrimination, stereotype, prejudices, and harmful practices concerning women and girls with disabilities. It is belong to the protection or the structural indicator that provide the protections system. 7. The consultation processes undertaken to ensure the active involvement of women and girls with disabilities include through their representative organization in design and implementations. Yeah, we have heard many times the government always respond. I mean, the third party respond us that, okay, we always involve persons with disability. We always involve women with disability in our implementations activity and program. But we never see how, I mean, the process of the involvement, what kind of system, what kind of mechanism to ensure, exactly mechanism to ensure that women and girls are included and also included as a meaningful consultation or close consultation and active involvement. And this outcome indicator will show us if the government has been doing it well, or it's true that they always saying that they really consult women and girls with disability and their representative organization. So without the system, how do we ensure the outcome? It is to encourage the government to think about the process of to implement the structure. I mean the structural systems. And also awareness raising. The other important point of the number, I mean, of representative organization of women with disability is to enhance and encourage the government to support women and girls with disability to set up and form their own coalitions or network. So the outcome, to result the outcome indicator. So number 6, the awareness raising campaigns and activity concern gender equality and inclusive of and women and girls with disability and combat multiple and intersecting form of discrimination, stereotype, prejudice, and harmful practices concern women and girls with disability. I already presented. Sorry, I used it. And 7, consultation processes undertaken to ensure the active involvement of women and girls with disability include through their representative organization in design and implementation, and proportions of received complaints alerting discriminations of and or involving women and girls with disability that have been investigated and adjudicated. It is important when the state party respond that, okay, we have a good system to protect women with disability. It is not true that women with disability face multiple or intersectional discrimination, particular gender-based violence and also gender-based discrimination. So this process indicator will show us exactly the results of the government, I mean the state party implementations, and how the government, I mean, adjust the system, for instance, law, policy, and its program to protect women and girls with disability from all form of discriminations. And then the outcome Since we have we know the structural indicator, the result of the structural indicator and the process indicator, we need to see the outcome. If the process is good, and also in line with rights-based approach and social models, the outcome will show us the quality and quantity of of the well-being of women and girls with disability. The first, the proportions of seats held by women in national parliaments and local governments segregated by disabilities. Number two, proportions of representations in decision-making positions in public sector desegregated by genders, age, and disability, among others. 3. Proportions of women in managerial positions desegregated by age and disability. 4. Proportions of representations of women with disability holding leadership positions within civil society, segregated by genders and disability, among others, including with organizations of persons with disability and women rights organizations. Yeah, refer to the concluding of the observation. The committee particular highlight to the mainstreaming women in Thai women assembly. Yeah. Thai women assembly. Last one, the proportions of the population subjected to physical, psychological, or sexual violence in the previous 12 months by gender, age, and disabilities. It is the results of the process and structural on the protection system. Thank you very much.
So we just readjusted our orders. So now I just forgot to the lawyer, the Joongbu, maybe Joongbu, will talk later. But anyhow, thank you for this our Tong Kwai for your presentation from Thailand. So you mentioned that the result and the usage of the indicator in your country. The important thing is that the situation in Thailand now is not this stable because now is in the new government, but with some active activities, they are trying to develop some indicator and also now checking for how to use that indicator. And so Sawalak mentioned for the Article 6 of the CRPD. So life of the women with disabilities also there will be reflected to develop indicator, the relevant indicator, and also the participation's networking issues of women with disabilities also would lead to some structural indicator. And also some process indicators, as Sawalak mentioned, some isolation issues of the women and girls with disabilities. And also how to create networking for women with disabilities, and also how to participate in disabilities in the decision-making process. So those issues are reflected into the process indicator. So based on this indicator, so the life of the women with disabilities would be changed, and also they can be free from the violences or some intersectional discriminations. So I wish those indicators would be good to protect, promote the life of the women with disabilities in Thailand. Next, I would like to invite lawyer Cho Mi-yeon from the Koean Foundation. Please, it's your time.
I am Joongbu from Koean Human Rights Law Foundation. Last year, I participated in the review process of CRPD, and I was participating in making parallel report. And also, I also participated in planning this workshop. I have been given 20 minutes. So this is the table of contents. Mr. Kim already mentioned the basic idea, how we developed the indicators in Korea. So for me, I will use 10 minutes to explain the indicators developed by our solidarity, and from the perspective of civil society and public officials, how to utilize these indicators will be discussed in my presentation. So in terms of result of indicator development, I will skip this part because this was explained by Mr. Kim after the concluding observations to the government, Korean government. Out of 73 paragraphs, we made solidarity to develop indicators, and we created 111 indicators. And also, we made the English version of the indicators. It was already discussed. So I will skip this part. And I would like to mention how to utilize the indicators. So what's the meaning of indicators? So indicators, it's used to request the compliance of CRPD and implementation of concluding observations. That's why we developed 111 indicators to make sure the concluding observations are really well implemented. So based on the indicators, we can think about how it can be utilized. First of all, from the national agencies. The national agencies might develop indicators by themselves, or they will implement CRPDs by themselves. In Korea, we have national human rights commissions are taking the initiative in developing their own indicators, and also Ministry of Health and Welfare and CODI are participating in developing indicators. And in order to monitor the implementation, they have some projects. So in conducting the projects in national organizations, they might refer to our indicators, and they might use our indicators to benchmark. So we have National Assembly, which is legislating the laws in Korea. Out of 300 lawmakers, 2 to 4 National Assembly members should be elected out of disabled people, so that they can have effective communication with DPOs. And in utilizing the indicators, and also we are referring the concluding observations in developing indicators, and state parties specific issues should be considered to have indicators. So communication channel can be made utilizing the indicators. Korea right now, according to the Article 61 of the Constitution, we are actually doing parliamentary audits. In this month, we are actually conducting parliamentary audit, and we can utilize our indicators to make sure the society and the state party are really effectively implementing concluding observations of CRPD. And Korea's National Assembly had some standing committees in each sector. So as I mentioned already, the issues of disabled people are under the Standing Committee of Health and Welfare. So in this committee, we can discuss the issues in relation to disabled people's welfare by utilizing the indicators developed by our solidarity. And lastly, in National Assembly, when legislators are actually proposing the draft of the law, and also when we conclude or adopt resolutions in relation to revision of the laws. For example, the optional protocol, if it's not ratified, the National Assembly members will urge the National Assembly to adopt the resolution in relation to the adopting the optional protocol. That's the process of making sure the optional protocol is ratified. And also we have some resolution to prevent the tragedies occurred among the family members or disabled people. So utilizing the indicators, we can make sure the National Assembly can adopt the resolution calling for implementation of CRPD. So now I'd like to focus on how civil society and NGOs can utilize the indicators. So like today's workshop and conference in relation to implementation of CRPD and to facilitate international cooperation, we can use the implementation indicators. And also for public interest litigation and for various social movements, we can use the indicators that we developed. And we already developed indicators, but we need to take further action to make sure to implement indicators and implement concluding observations. And we need to have monitoring alliance so that we can review the process of implementation. So by 2031, the Korea's sixth report, national report will be made, and we will do the monitoring to make sure the concluding observations are really well implemented. And so to develop list of issues and NGO reports, we can utilize our indicators. So I would like to show some examples how civil society can utilize our indicators. after the based on the concluding observations, 12C1. This is the content of the concluding observation. Create support system to provide litigation costs for PWDs who lost trial on disability rights. So this is the indicator based on this concluding observation. We have Civil Procedure Act and Anti-Discrimination Act in Korea. We have to revise these laws. To this end, we can utilize our indicator. And bottom left, based on the concluding observations, paragraph 42, we have this indicator. Devise and supplement deinstitutionalization roadmap. So in litigation process, we can raise issues. So NGOs and our solidarities they would like to ask the UN to make investigation into deinstitutionalization process in Korea. So social movements in order to revise the system and or to have the public litigation, the indicators can be utilized as the basis. So based on the data and indicators, we will have 4 to 6 national report in 2031. And before that, we can make list of issues and NGO reports. And to this end, we can utilize our indicators to derive LOI and NGO reports. So that was how we utilize the indicators in the future. And I hope that our next 4th and 6th combined Korean government report will be improved further based on our indicators. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, the lawyer Ki-ryong from Koean Foundation. So she mentioned about the result of the and also usage of the indicator. So indicator development was covered by the Professor Kim. So she focused on how to use that indicator in Korea to compliance of the UNCRPD and also call for implementation of concrete observation at the main point regarding for this indicator. The Human Rights Commission and the Ministry of Health and Welfare and other government agency are also the partners to use this indicator developed by our side. And also we can use our National Assembly with this indicator. And also one of the important point is that how civil society use this indicator. So the active usage of civil society is very important. That is only one way to increase effectiveness of this indicator in the future. So based on this, international cooperation and then monitoring some alliance of this indicator. Also she mentioned. So indicator development association alliance could change into the monitoring alliance in the future. So she also mentioned the importance of the system changes. So we have the Anti-Discrimination Act in Korea. But whenever we need to revise this relevant law, so this data from indicator also would be important. And also one of the issue in Korea is the institutionalization. So the institutionalization point can be used for this indicator. And also in 2023, the Korean government they will present the combined 4 and 6 the national report. So when we also present our the shadow report, this indicator would be the good data for us. And then next, I would like to invite Meta Ki-ryong from Laos. The summary of the concluding observation and key findings. Yeah, Meta Ki-ryong. Am I right for the pronunciation? Yeah. So please.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Madam Chair, for an opportunity for me to share some of the thought and also the drafts indicators that we have working on, and we went through the workshop with Professor Kim, and together with senior from Thailand and Indonesia, and we have learned. I myself learned a lot through the workshops, and is first. May I have the slides? Yes. Thank you. So again, I'm Meta Ki-ryong from Laos, and I'm very pleased to be here with you all and share some thoughts on the concluding observation and key findings, and the sum of the drafts indicator that we have developed. Okay, Laos is a small countries that are landlocked. We call ourselves is landlocked countries that neighbor by China, Myanmar, Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia, and we are in the middle. We our capital city is Vientiane, and we have adopted or ratified the UNCRPD in 2009. Through that, since ratify the conventions, it took about 10 years journey for us to have law of person with disabilities, which we endorsed in 2019. But during that time, we found a lot of difficulty because we have COVID-19 pandemic. So the law has not yet in the nationwide. So in the central, currently in the central area, yes. And then we first submit our first country report in 2022, last year's very news and fresh for us. And we received the reviews or concluding observations from the UN committees in 2022 as well. So it's been a year since then, and the government has been engaged with our organization for persons with disabilities in terms of how we deal with the on recommendations from the committees that we need to be mindful in terms of the timing that we need to report back again in 2027, if I'm not mistaken. And the person with disability has been included and joined with the government in terms of reviewing conclude observations, and until now, the committee of has been formed from different ministry. And then we hope that we will have national action plan by the end of this year. Yep, this is our next loud liberal. And this statement like nothing about us without us has been really influenced and create a great opportunity to include organization for person with disability to include in the consultations and share challenges facing from person with disability in the society and promote the rights of person with disabilities. At that time, there are 13 organizations across the province, and also mostly people in the organization in the central has been volunteered to be involved in the CRPD country reviews at the times last year. That we want to be includes that including the person with hearing impaired, blind, and on those visual impairment, people with autisms, organizations and intellectual disabilities and physical mobility impaired that's engaged with the shadow report that we has been working last year. We have general principle and obligate. The committee concerned the initial report for Laos PDRs that has been following conclusion observations. The committee provide very constructive dialogue with the state party and high-level delegations, which they have a general principle and operate their views as like review existing disability related to legislation, policy, and align them with the conventions, includes through implementing the language regarding person with disabilities, and ensures assessment system are based on the human rights models of disabilities aimed at the assess legal and environment barrier with disabilities and provide the necessary support assistance to promote independent living of person with disability in the societies, and adopt twist approach to mainstream the rights of person with disability across national action plan and strategies, and adopting targeting monitoring measures and specific support to empowering the person with disabilities. Implement mechanisms, effective involvement of person with disability, in particular with the intellectual disability through their representative organizations in a public making process, concern law and policy effective them, strengthen National Committee for Persons with Disabilities, recognize the role of civil society organizations as a human rights defendant, prohibited any against individuals, organizations promoting the rights of persons with disabilities, to take measures to protect civil space. With this general principle and obligate or reviews from the committees that has been we working alongside with the government to have some kind of thought what are the indicators or some of the activity that can be answering or taking actions to address the recommendations. With this, I would like to have 3 areas that sharing some thought of the indicator with you. One is the Women with Disability, Article 6, Accessibilities, Article 9, and Rehabilitations, and Article 26. But I will briefly share for those indicator in each article. Oh, technical problems. The slides.
Sorry. 10분 시간 타임.
So you want to have the 10 minutes, 10 minutes. So
Okay. So for the women's articles 6, we have worked with professional Professor Kim's, and I have make some drafts indicators that also need. This is a draft version of Laos. So indicator we found like health restrictions mentions the rise of persons with disabilities from ethnic group to access on form of healthcare, minimum materialization service, and must be provided to be women and girl with disabilities. And the other indicator would be law on development and protections of women's mentioned disability status in the list of ground for discriminate against women. Law on gender equality specific conditions and measures focus on the empowering women with disabilities. And the other indicators that we think of is proportions of legislation, national action plan, and strategic target, women and person with disability, referral women and girl with disabilities, number of person with disabilities that have been included or include in the work of related to women and girl with disabilities. On the accessibilities article 9, we have developed six indicator draft 6 indicators here, like the number of public buildings audit for accessibilities. This maybe the breakout of this is we are now doing the we have the national accessibility guideline from Ministry of Social Labor and Social Welfare, and one of our DPO person with disability also adopt that as the guideline and work that through the as the tool to do the audit as accessibility audit for the buildings. And also the indicator that we can define is that the legislation and policy require disability access in the planning and public buildings such as elevator ramps, accessibility toilets, accessibility parking lot, accessibilities, accessible sign. You might think like, oh, why it's very putting into the very detail in terms of this ramp and elevator. So you might not get in like pictures. For our countries, we quite have limited access in terms of public space. So if we compare Seoul to Laos, is far behind. So the buildings is become like stair buildings, and then we need to advocate on this. So it's starting making progress. And I will skip to Article 26. That fews indicator that we have drafts. One, it would be talking about the number of professionals trained and certified for provisions of rehabilitations that could provide the service for person with disability. Since in Laos, we have only 6 one center in Vientiane and 6 sub-center in the provinces that could not cover on the province. So we really mindful that we need more professional trained and certified to be in the rural area as well. And awareness raising campaigns on rehabilitations and rehabilitation, including on the service-related assistive device and number of technologies for person with disabilities for all forms. So with this, I believe that this is the stigma of the people living in the community is would be the same. So in Laos also we would like to make that barrier that to have people coming to join the society. We don't want to lock or we don't want to be in the homes. So with this convention of the right of person with disability, we found that also agree with seniors that mentioned about the CRPD is like Bible, that we can really use that as the guidance to on everyone that use in the same language, that we can talk and then we are understanding, and then just we learn and bring back home the best practice from each others, and then what we can apply that expertise or learning experience to our own context, because in different countries have different context or process to working on, but we have the same models or the same things that we want to make the right reels and want to make is the best use of our the recommendation from the committees that we want to make more inclusive society for person with disabilities. So thank you so much. So maybe I don't have I have technical problem on the slide, so I just talk through. Yep. Oh, now it's come.
Thank you. 네, 감사합니다. 네.
Thank you. Actually, we are a little bit behind the schedule. So actually presentation, we've given 20 minutes, but we are a little bit behind the schedule. Sorry for being late. So we will now give you 10 minutes. Sorry for providing only 10 minutes because we are a little bit behind the schedule. And from Laos, Beta T Pawang from COPE. She talked that you have many challenges in Laos and people with disabilities. They've gathered together to develop indicators. As she mentioned, the CRPD is Bible. We should recognize the CRPD as Bible. That was mentioned by her. It's very important, especially Article 6 and Article 9, accessibility, and Article 26, rehabilitation. Focusing on these articles, you are developing indicators. And you are working on this issue and you have many challenges, but this is the starting point. But I hope that this venue will be a meaningful venue so that we can provide some help to you. So last speaker, sorry for being only 10 minutes to you. And from Indonesia, she will talk about development process of the indicators. Malini Rutin Slu, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So I will be 7 minutes only. So yeah. So the indicators, according to me, or according to the groups of OPD in Indonesia, the indicators should be harmonized with the government structure, mainly its autonomy system in Indonesia, because we have an autonomy system, and also we have three grades of regulation mechanism, from the national and to the provincial and the sub-district level. All of these levels should have their own regulations. So that was make us a bit complicated. And then the indicator that proposed is responding to the recommendation. I would like to give three recommendation of the committee, and I believe in the journey of the fulfilling the recommendation, there should be various of impact aroused. First is I would like to about the Article 5, equal and non-discriminations. The committee recommend that there's recommend that the state party adopt measures to harmonize legislation at the national, provincial, city and regency and sub-district level to ensure comprehensive and uniform protection for all persons with disabilities from all forms of discrimination, and to ensure rights of action and access to remedy. So this is what I said before. The key finding is harmonization of national and subnational regulation compliance with CRPD. The indicator that we propose is the government identified and harmonized discriminatory national and subnational laws of persons with disabilities, and then we expected number of discriminatory law national in national level will be identified, and number of provincials. We have 34 provincial in Indonesia, and now only 4 provincial level that has their own local regulation that compliance to the CRPD. So it means the rest of 30 provinces will be expected by us, and then 400 city and regency regulations. So ministry in charge in these issues for the national level, Ministry of Domestic Affairs, and then for the local levels, there's local governments related, and also the parliament in national and local related as well. So we thought that in Indonesia, we create, after ratified, we create the monitoring mechanism we call National Commission on Disabilities. So we expect all the data resources relating to ongoing process will coming from this monitoring of National Commission on Disabilities. So that's the second one is the Women with Disabilities Articles 9. The recommendation repeal or amend legislation that discriminates against women with disabilities, including law number 1 concerning marriage, and also the Lampung Province regulation number 17 on exclusive breastfeeding. Mainstreaming the rights of the women with disability in gender-related legislation and policies, and mainstreaming a gender perspective in disability-related legislation and policy in close consultation with the active involvement of women with disabilities. Include an intersectional analysis for women and girls with disabilities, including those from indigenous group, ethnic, religious minorities, rural area, remote island, and across all policy area, including educational, family, education, family, employment, justice, and health. So it is quite complete, not complicated. It's quite complete recommendation from the committee. So the key finding is repeal and amendment of marriage law and subnational regulation on the on breastfeeding, and then mainstreaming women and girls with disabilities policies and legislation, including minority, vulnerable and vulnerable groups identity. Of course, the full participation of persons with disabilities, including women with disabilities. So the indicator is marriage law and subnational regulation on breastfeeding aligned with CRPD principle, means that we have to have the amendment of this law, and number of policies to mainstream women and girls with disability and vulnerable identity groups, of course. So the government who are in charge is Ministry of Women Empowerment and Children Protections, and also the Parliament. The last is about education. The recommendation of the committee is develop an inclusive education strategy with specific target and timelines, and a specific budget, and coordinate responsibility among national, provincial, city, and regency level, covering all the level of educations. Second is establish disability service unit in all region. This disability service units is one of the strategy that we put in our law to covering to support the availability of reasonable accommodations, and all region and at all educational level to facilitate the provision of accessible learning materials, alternatives, communication, and information methods such as inclusive digital access, easy read, braille, sign language, communication aids, and assistive and information technology, and to ensure teacher training in sign language and braille, including in rural and remote area. Develop policy and strategies to address the stigma of the misinformation about leprosy in the education system, and to ensure the participation of children affected by leprosy or children whose parents are affected by leprosy, inclusive education. So in Indonesia, we still have negative stigma to the leprosy. I think similar with the psychosocial with disability as well. They have very thick stigma, negative stigma to them. So it is important to address it in particular. So the findings, the key finding is development of inclusive education strategy covering all level of education, and then establishment of the disability service unit in all region. As you know, before that we have 400 regions and sub-regions. Development of policies and strategy to address the stigma of misinformation about leprosy in education system. Many children with leprosy who are not accepted in the regular schools. Yeah. So the indicator is number of schools providing inclusive schools, number of service units in the regions, the service units that we stated before. This is the service unit in the local office of educations. They provide all reasonable accommodation and assessment to the students on their needs relating to the reasonable accommodation. And then others indicator is number of programs to address the stigma and misinformation on leprosy educations. And also the ministry that in charge with this one is Ministry of Education and of course Parliament. If several regulations should be changed, should be revised. Thank you very much.
네, 감사합니다.
Thank you. Sorry for not providing enough time. So we've heard from Baloni Rutinsulu from Indonesia. In Indonesia, you have 3 legislation levels, national, provincial, and district levels. And you have your own characteristics in terms of regulation. And we have some common issues in relation to women with disabilities. And we need to increase accessibility, and we have to make sure their human rights have been guaranteed. And in terms of education, inclusive education should be provided in terms of leprosy and stigma towards the people with mental disabilities. We have to address these discrimination issues, and so that their human rights can be guaranteed in through the social framework and regulation revision. So due to time limits, we will have very short Q&A session. So we might take 1 or 2 questions. So if you have really urgent question, you can ask questions right now, or you can send emails to us. Then we will provide you the answers. Is there anyone who must ask questions right now? We cannot provide you enough time. Apology for this. No. Because we are behind the schedule. Yes. You are very shy in raising your hand. Who would like to ask a question to? This is my comment. You will be very short, brief. I am Joongbu, representative of Autism Association. I looked at indicators. In terms of privacy, the indicators were not specific. So the recommendations from the committee is that without informed consent, the GPS is being issued. So it is actually violating the privacy of the people with disabilities. So we need to earn consent before equipping the GPS device. So I hope that in order to make sure the good implementation of this CRPD concluding observations, when we look at the regulations of the provincial government, ordinance, there is a provision article in relation to GPS, and that's provision doesn't include the informed consent from the disabled people. So from my personal opinion, to prevent the missing of the disabled people, we need to revise the laws, regulations, So we might provide the number of revision so that the laws and regulations can include the informed consent from the people with developmental disabilities. In Korea, actually, the guardian or the parents of the persons who are suffering from autism and developmental disabilities, sometimes, although they provide consent, their consent is being made by force by the government, by the parents or the guardians, so that we should make sure there should be no forced consent. So to this end, we need to have make sure the laws and regulations should be revised. So the indicators should include the number of revised laws. And in terms of the Article 20, so that was my brief comment. So we don't have enough time, sorry.
그래서 뭐 김기룡 박사, 교수님 짧게 답변 주실까요?
And Professor Kim, do you want to say something or others?
Yeah, 1 minute. Because it is important. Thank you for your presentation. Yeah. Yeah. I agree with your comments, and I accept that this is very important. However, the issue of support decision making, informed consent, etc. The committee always put this issue under Article 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 19. So therefore, the indicator about this, the support decision making and substitute decision making and informed consent should be, under this article in different context of each country. Thank you. 여기 누구 해?
So yeah. So many develop all the indicators. Do we observe all the, maybe we can also add the comment in our the indicator. And also there is another indicator according to the UNCRPD. So based on that indicators, maybe you will the concerns are also late included in the relevant some indicators. Maybe if we need some revise or change, also we will do. So I'd like to check, say one more. So now we are still in the process of developing the indicator, but this indicator just is some the tool. The more important thing is that how much each government implement the concrete observations by themselves. That is more the important point from the other perspective. So the indicator is one of the tool to monitor the implementation process of each government. The implementation of their own concluding observation. Maybe one part we can the pressure to the government, and also the other part may also we can propose some the policies based on these kinds of the indicator. So this indicator is a tool to use effectively the concluding observation. Thank you.
지표가
So indicators cannot be perfect, but we will try hard so that it can be improved further, so that we can make sure the state party implement CRPD concluding observations in effective ways. So in this process, we have to make changes in the future, not only in Korea, but also in other countries in Asia. We would like to make society where human rights of disabled people are well guaranteed. We will do our best to make sure that each government can implement the concluding observations of CRPD based on these indicators. For a long time, you've made very good efforts. Thank you very much. I hope that we have had much more guests, but I know that you will be very active in delivering this message to other people outside of this room. So this will conclude this session. Any other comments? So then I would like to conclude this session. Thank you. So we shared indicator development process and the results. Thank you very much for your participation. So before we end the conference, we've had very fruitful result from the conference. So KDF will do its best to share this idea to other people, with other people. And you can go to your seat, go back to your seat. And before we conclude, I would like to invite Park Young-ae, the representative of Disabled People's Committee. She will deliver the farewell remarks. We will take, and then we will have a photo session. Now we will invite Ms. Park for closing remarks. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am a co-representative of KDF, Park Young-ae. So we've had this meaningful conference. I would like to thank you for joining us in this meaningful occasion. Through this conference, we've reviewed the implementation of CRPD, and also KDF and Asian countries representatives. They had workshop to make sure we can develop effective indicators to monitor the implementation of CRPD. It was very meaningful time for us. And thanks to your support and interest, we are now concluding this conference in successful ways. We were able to make sure to establish the good foundation to implement CRPD. Through the General Comment number 7 of CRPD, meaningful participation of DPO is the key in implementing CRPD. So the importance of the role of DPO has been emphasized, and that's why such a conference is very important. So DPO's involvement in our efforts is very important and meaningful. And I hope that such conference will be regularized in the future. I would like to thank KDF and also other organizations for hosting this event. And also I would like to thank the presenters and discussants from Indonesia, Malini Lotinsu, and Sawalak Tongkwai from Thailand, and Meta Tapawang from Laos, and Abif from Mongolia. Thank you for your participation, and also those who joined online. The discussants from Japan and Malaysia, and also participants from Korea. Thank you so much for your participation. Our Korea Disability Forum will do its best to deliver our message to the community And also we will strengthen our solidarity in Asian countries. Once again, I would like to thank you for your participation. Thank you. So this will conclude the 2023 Global Disability Conference. So once again, please give a big round of applause to Ms. Bach for closing remarks. Then now we will have photo session after we organize the settings. And please come up to the stage and participate in photo session.